banana juice before, so we're gonna go ahead and give this a try. It sounds really good. They finally let me out to explore. So, see you tomorrow turned into see you when I get home. My last few days of my trip were very busy, which is a good thing. Back again to Papeete, Tahiti to pick up the rental car and catch the ferry. They have rental car agencies on Moria and on all the other islands, but I was trying to use my AAA discount, and the only way I could do that was through Hertz, and they don't have a Hertz on Moria. It actually gave me a lot more freedom on my last day when I came back to Tahiti, because then I had the rental car and I could explore more on my own. And as I'm getting my rental car, as I'm signing all the paperwork, the lady at the registration office says, "Do you already have tickets for the ferry?" And I said, "No, I was just gonna do it when I got there." And she said, you need to go ahead and book it right now, like while we're finishing up the paperwork. They only have space for about 10 cars on each ferry. Other people have told me not to judge the rest of French Polynesia by Papeete, because Papeete is the more Europeanized central city. So they've got apartment buildings, they've got a lot of businesses. It feels more like a European city. There are streetlights everywhere. It's multi-lane traffic. There are roundabouts everywhere. It's very chaotic, very different feeling from the rest of the island. Coming back into Papeete in that traffic was just kind of like, this is very different from the rest of the island that I've seen so far. But I made it. I found the ferry terminal. So pull up to the ferry terminal. I have no idea where to go. All the signs are in French. And the security guard came over, he told me where to go. I was like, just park here, go over to that counter. Because I'd bought my tickets so far in advance, thinking that it was going to take me like an hour and a half to get there, I bought tickets for like the ferry that was 2 hours away. So I sat there for an hour, and then the ferry showed up, and they had a ramp, and you drive up the ramp, and they guide you into this tiny little, it's this very, I don't know, it was pretty small. I was kind of impressed with how they were able to get all 10 cars and motorcycles and everything squished into this little tiny compartment in the ferry, which is a giant dual-hulled catamaran. There are two primary ferry companies, Arameti and Taravu. I booked with Taravu. So once I parked my car, I went through like a little hatch in the wall and followed the rest of everybody up these stairs onto the deck, onto the rear deck, and then you can go inside, and there's seating inside. But I realized, kind of off to the side from this back deck was this little walkway. It takes you all the way to the very front of the boat, where there's a little viewing deck. There were a bunch of us that just kind of congregated up there. As you're facing forward, you got the wind in your face. It was a really fun experience. I was expecting it to be like a gentle river cruise, and it was nothing like that. The whole ride took about 30 to 45 minutes. And so we were moving fairly quickly. Moria is close enough to the island Tahiti that you can see it. I mentioned that in my first video, but as you get closer to it, it's very dramatic. For all the Lord of the Rings people out there, unfortunately, there are no mines on Moria. This whole island is just these dramatic volcano peaks. And the ferry terminal is actually kind of in a pirate cove in the side of the island. So I kind of felt like I was, heading into Treasure Island or something. Moria and Bora Bora are probably the most touristy islands. Moria is a popular weekend place for people from Tahiti. They all go to Moria for the weekend. And luckily, I was going on Wednesday, so it wasn't too much of a problem. There's one main road. The one main road just goes all the way around the perimeter of the island, so it's really hard to get lost. Either which way you turn, eventually you'll end up where you need to be. It just might take you an hour longer than you originally planned. I know this because if I turned left, my Airbnb was about 25 minutes away, but I turned right. I didn't mind. Brought the rental car, so for the specific purpose of being able to do that and just circle the island and see everything. So kind of as you start heading up like the east side of the island from the ferry terminal, you start hitting all of the resorts. There are 3 major resorts on the island of Moria. There's the Hilton, the Sofitel, and the Manava. I stayed in an Airbnb called Mark's Place. He started building these unique little bungalows, and he started renting them out. He's got it gated off, so it's pretty safe. I had a full kitchen, a sitting room with like 2 couches. I had a futon couch in my bedroom with my bed. The shower in this bungalow was very exciting. He put it together with stone, and then he incorporated like colored glass bottles in the walls. So it has this very unique effect, and it's really cool. So I got checked into my bungalow. I realized I haven't had lunch yet, so I drove into town. The thing that should be noted is that a lot of restaurants in Moria and on Tahiti and other places throughout French Polynesia will close between like 2 and 5. And I was like in this weird hazy zone of like 3:34. So I was trying to find something that was still open, was kind of tricky. Eventually found a very nice person who spoke enough English to say there's a little shopping center down there and they might still be open. So I drove down there and found this little restaurant called See You Soon. I appreciate the pun. It made me very happy. And I saw on their sign that they had pizza. I walked up to the counter and said, hey, can I order a pizza? And they handed me this menu, and literally 2 pages of this full-size menu were just pizza. But it wasn't pizza like we would see at home. There were a lot of different seafood pizzas, which makes sense. We're on a tropical island. And then they had one that was not necessarily a cheese pizza, but it's called a fromage pizza, which is of course the French word for cheese. But it wasn't like a cheese pizza in what we would consider a cheese pizza. It was, traditional cheeses like cheddar and mozzarella, but then it had like slices of brie cheese on it. Brie on a pizza is not something that I ever thought I would enjoy, but I did. So then the next morning, I had arranged to do a private tour with Spiro, the lady in blue. She's a very lovely lady from France. She moved over to Moria and now does these tours. She loves the color blue and she loves pearls. I happen to also love the color blue, so we got along quite swimmingly. She's very knowledgeable about the local flora. So we did do a lot of driving around and talking about different trees, different plants. We visited the moray. There's a whole archaeological site kind of toward the center of the island where archaeologists found these completely authentic and mostly preserved moray. What had happened was, even as they were being converted to Christianity, the people of Moria considered the center of the island to be very sacred. So they just kind of left the moray, let trees grow through them to show that they weren't being used, and just kind of pretended they weren't there, and the missionaries never found them and destroyed them, and so they're still sitting there to this day. The archaeologists have come in and kind of, put a few stones back together, but most of what you see is they're all authentic, except for now they have trees growing in them, and the trees have been left growing inside of them to show that they are no longer in use. They mainly stand now to show that this was a significant part of their culture back in the day. She drove me up to the Belvedere, which has a stunning panoramic view of the island and Cook's Bay and Opanohu Bay. Fun fact about Cook's Bay is that's not actually where Captain Cook landed when he came to the island of Moria in the 1800s. That was actually Opanohu Bay, but they named the other one after Captain Cook. We don't know why. Spiro drove me down into a pineapple farm. They do really well in like a tropical climate, so they do really well in Tahiti. Contrary to popular belief, pineapple does not grow on trees. It grows in these little prickly bushes. So you can always tell where the pineapple fields are because it'll just be this little stretch where like all the plants are a little bit shorter than everything else and in perfectly nice little rows. As we're driving along this back road from the Belvedere through these pastures, she's showing me the central mountains of the island. There's the God Mountain. The legend has it that the gods of the mountain like to keep the mountain covered so that humans won't bother them. And the mountain is only ever uncovered if the gods want to show favor. Well, the God Mountain was uncovered the entire time I was on this tour. I don't know what to take away from that, but there it was. Cool. So according to this legend, there was an island princess who had a major crush on a demigod, and this demigod with his giant spear goes off to the nearby island of Tahiti. It's really not all that far away. You can literally see it from across the water. It's not that far away, but still. And while he's gone, the princess and the people of Moria face an insurmountable foe. And the princess, in her hour of greatest need, prays to the mountain gods and says, please let my lover hear my plea telepathically from across the water and send help so that we can defeat this insurmountable foe. And the demigod hears her telepathically on the island of Tahiti, and because he's apparently part giant, he just throws his giant spear across the water. I mean, it's it's not that far. It's like it takes 20 minutes by plane. But still, he throws this giant spear across the water. It goes through the peak of one of the mountains and comes crashing down into the valley and kills the enemy leader, thus ending the battle, and everyone's happy and they won. And then the princess prays to the mountain gods again, but this time she asks the mountain gods to change the peak of this particular mountain into the likeness of herself, praying thanks and giving thanks for deliverance. And there's actually a mountain peak that looks like the face of a woman facing upward and praying. And the hole from the spear that was thrown is actually the nostril hole of the praying princess rock. I don't know how it actually got there, but it is a fun legend. Also why a lot of tourists pose at that mountain. We drove up to a small jam factory. We had jam tasting. It was very good. I bought some. They had arts and crafts of another vanilla plantation. Vanilla is very popular in the islands. They have a very specific way of manufacturing it. I kind of talked about that on one of the tours on Huahine. And she had ice cream. And it was kind of, hot, humid day. Ice cream's nice. And so I asked her if she had any Corosol ice cream. And she said, no, but I do have Tiere ice cream. And my tour guide, Spiro, was like, Tiere is very, very rare. If you see it, if you have the opportunity, you should try it. So I did. Tiere is the Tahitian word for the gardenia flower. Imagine the scent of a gardenia flower captured into an ice cream. I spent the afternoon on the beach with some French tourists that I ran into. They invited me to go with them to one of the public beaches. It was a bank holiday, so the schools were all closed, so the beaches were all packed. So the three of us just kind of went to this crowded public beach and splashed around in the water. And then later that evening, I met with a massage therapist for a Jiansu massage. So a Jiansu massage is a type of water massage that was kind of developed in Mexico and brought into other parts of the world. There's like a comforting, relaxing recentering that happens because you're floating in the water. They're pulling you through the water and manipulating your body in the water. It's a really good form of massage for women who are pregnant. It's very relaxing and it's weightless. My massage therapist's name was Sandra. She operates out of her home, which is a very lovely, very unique beach bungalow that's right there on the beach. So we just kind of, went out her back door, down a couple of steps, and we were right there in the lagoon, in the shallow part of the lagoon. She gave me a nose plug and she said, just keep your head back so that your nose is above the water. And trust me. She said, you're going to go underwater, but you'll feel me pushing you underwater. You won't be underwater all that long. I'm not just going to dunk you or anything. She said she combines her technique with other water massage techniques. So her technique is kind of a combination of Jiansu with these other techniques that kind of she's found really work well together. And then when she finishes the massage, she swims you into the shallow beach and sits you up in the water. And she just told me, okay, I'm going to go make some tea. Sit out here as long as you like. And the sun's going down over the lagoon and the boats are starting to go out into the harbor. One thing I've discovered about French Polynesia is the sunsets and the sunrises are these vivid shades of red and pink and purple and orange. So I'm literally sitting there in the water, feeling all relaxed and rejuvenated with the sun going down with these gorgeous sunset colors, and just started singing praise and worship songs because I'm just so overwhelmed with it. I sang Oceans, seemed appropriate sitting there in the ocean. It's one of those times where you just don't want it to end and you sit there and you're aware that you need to probably move on and go back inside and move on with your day, but you're just like, I need to sit here and enjoy this moment. And I did. I sat there, singing praise and worship songs to the Lord. Until Sandra came out and said, hey, tea's getting cold. So I went back in. And then that evening, I went back to See You Soon, and I tried a different pizza. This one was a chicken curry pizza. Not necessarily something I've ever thought of as a pizza option, but I'd seen it on the menu the day before and was like, I want to try that. So I did. It was like cheese and chicken and a few other things, and then it had a light coating of curry powder on top. And it was so delicious. So good. Pizza is very popular in French Polynesia. It's not that expensive to manufacture. European style pizza is more of a flat crust pizza. It's a tart flambe more than a deep dish Chicago pizza or a pizza that we would see at like Pizza Hut or something like that. It's definitely it's a thin crust pizza, and they make it very well. One cannot necessarily come to French Polynesia without trying the pizza. I grabbed my pizza at See You Soon, and I drove back down to my bungalow and was eating pizza, and then got a notification about a tour I'd actually forgotten I booked. You may be asking, how do you forget that you booked a tour? And that's kind of a long story. I get this notification that I am now confirmed for a half-day snorkeling tour with Walla Moria. So I figured it's already paid for, I'm already confirmed, I won't be able to really cancel it because we're within the 24-hour cancellation period, so it can't be a bad thing. So bright and early on Friday morning, I drove myself out to Opanohu Bay to meet the tour operators. Our tour guide is a man named Leo. He's one of a few people who take these tours with this very cute little boat. Its name is Taboo. There were about 10 of us on the boat, and our first stop was a known place for snorkeling with sharks and stingrays. I know I said in a previous video that I had no intention of doing that, and I changed my mind. They're a bunch of black-tip sharks. They're maybe about as long as I am tall, and they mainly just look supremely annoyed. And they told us, if you don't approach the sharks will just kind of ignore you and swim away. They said the stingrays might want to come up and say hi. They're mainly looking to see if you have snacks because other tourists feed them. But otherwise, the stingrays will leave you alone. And it actually wasn't as terrifying as I thought it would be. A couple times you'd be happily just, swimming along, and you turn around and there's a shark right there. You'd be like, hi, and you just kind of swim away from it. Overall, I'm glad I did it. So after that, our next stop was the coral garden, which was really cool. There was a lot of coral, a lot of fish, all kind of in a condensed spot between these two matus. It was kind of intense though, because there was a bit of a current going. You could see it in the way the water was moving, but it was really, really pretty. And then our last stop was the underwater tiki site. And the history behind this is that when the missionaries were converting the people of Moria to Christianity, much like with the Moray that are still hiding in the center of the island, they didn't just want to destroy their tikis. So they took these 7 tikis out into the lagoon and they dumped them in the water to protect them from being destroyed by the missionaries. The ones that you see today are replicas of the originals. The originals have been kind of claimed by the ocean, but they had archaeologists actually go down into the ocean and recreate these according to what the originals looked like. The actual originals are out there covered in ocean stuff, so they're kind of just became one with the ocean. So, but we do get to see the replicas. So that was pretty cool. So after sailing along and snorkeling for a bit and drinking some virgin Mai Tais, they dropped us back at the beach, and I had the task of figuring out what to do with the rest of my day. There is arguably a lot to do, so I shouldn't have had a problem. The only issue is, as I may have mentioned in one of my previous videos, everything in French Polynesia closes around like 3 or 4, and it was about 1:30 when they dropped me off, so I had to figure out what to do with myself very quickly. I ended up driving down to Tiki Village and having lunch. Tiki Village is a cultural center where they've captured the authentic Polynesian village life. They've built traditional Polynesian houses, they've got people who still practice these traditional Polynesian crafts, and then they have a full-service restaurant. So I went to get lunch, and the entire menu was in French, so I was kind of struggling. The waitress brought out the food for the table next to me, so I asked her, hey, what was that? She goes, that's our special, those are tuna steaks. And I said, I'll try that. Never had a tuna steak before. It was definitely good. It came with some rice, it came with some vegetables. So after I had lunch, I was heading out of Tiki Village, and I heard the ladies in the gift shop talking to some other tourists about the cultural dinner that night. And so I went up to them and said, hey, I heard you talking about this. Do you still have tickets? And they said, yeah, we have tickets to the culture show at 9. And I said, can I get one? And so I went back to Tiki Village at 9 that night for the cultural show, which was a presentation of traditional Tahitian music and dance. Polynesian dance is very interesting. It's similar to hula, but it's not exactly the same thing. There are a lot of grass skirts, there are a lot of parios, but it was very entertaining, very interesting. They did a presentation that went along with a story of these warriors who are seeking a pearl. pearl in a giant clamshell, and the pearl ends up being a princess. And the princess and the chieftain get married. So that was the story. And so they demonstrated different types of Polynesian dance. They demonstrated a type of Polynesian wedding ceremony along with the dance. They had traditional Polynesian music to go along with it, which was very entertaining. And then they did presentations of Hawaiian hula dancing as well as Maori haka, which I'm fascinated with. So that was really cool to see.
Kaura kaura, tradizione donde haka, donde la victoria. Kaura kaura, tradizione dance of haka, dance of victory.
There were fire dancers. It was pretty cool.
Show all the people like to sing a last song. It's the religion song. We wish you peace, lovely and healthy on all the island from Polynesia. The last song is for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, was my adventure on the island of Moria. You can see why it's a very popular destination. It was very tropical, very dramatic, lots of history, lots of legend, easy to navigate with my rental car. Moria definitely has a lot to offer. I will need to come back to the island at some point. Thanks for watching.
Maururu, merci.